Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. The press says that the Great Salt Lake in Utah is drying up due to the burning of fossil fuels. But actual scientists say the Great Salt Lake is drying up because people are using the water which used to flow into the lake. Consumption of fresh water is likely to blame for the shrinking of Utah's Great Salt Lake and of similar lakes around the world. This article from 5 years ago in Science magazine makes it sound like the concept is something new. But it's been known since at least 1936. January 3rd, 1936. Great Salt Lake is still shrinking. This is largely due to the fact that farms and cities are using more and more of the water from the streams that previously fed the lake. As a matter of fact, Great Salt Lake has been shrinking for many centuries. It was once a great inland sea known as Lake Bonneville. Lake Bonneville was 19,000 square miles and was twice the size of Lake Erie. At its deepest, it was 1,000 feet deep. The light blue in this map shows the extent of Lake Bonneville. The dark blue shows the current Great Salt Lake. Utah has seen dramatic changes of climate over the last 20,000 years. According to YouTube and the United Nations, climate change is caused by the burning of fossil fuels. If YouTube is correct about this, then Native Americans must have been burning a lot of fossil fuels 20,000 years ago. In 1947, Dr. Nilsson of Stockholm University found that the water level in Lake Victoria had fallen 7 feet in the last 10 years. And the Great Salt Lake lost half of its water between 1850 and 1950. In 1902, it was reported that the water level in the Great Salt Lake was the lowest ever recorded. This happened after 17 or 18 years of dry weather. According to YouTube, changes in weather patterns are caused by the burning of fossil fuel. So this 1902 steam car was likely responsible. But not everybody had a fossil fuel powered vehicle. Electric cars were very popular around that time. In fact, in the year 1900, 38% of American cars were electric. 120 years ago, almost 40% of American cars were electric, but that number now is down below 1%. Electric cars have seen a 98% drop in market penetration over the last 120 years. But the New York Times says that Americans are buying electric vehicles at a record pace. The New York Times used the same story in 1911 when they said electric vehicles were going to take over the world. They said that Thomas Edison had perfected electric transportation. And since then, the market penetration of electric vehicles has plummeted. This article from October 28, 1900, gave a good description of what's wrong with electric vehicles. They have a short range, and if the battery goes dead between stations, it's impossible to recharge the battery. It takes a very long time to recharge the batteries don't last very long, and they're very expensive. People came up with the idea of swapping batteries rather than recharging them. But that might be difficult with a Tesla battery which weighs half a ton. In 1883, Thomas Edison described the large storage battery as being a scam for swindling people. But by the year 1910, Thomas Edison had become a beneficiary of the scam. May 9, 1910, electric cars. Edison's new storage battery is cause of revolution. Short life cells, thing of the past. Removes last objection to electric car used by advocates of gas. The 1910 Studebaker Electric was a beautiful car for beautiful rich people. If you're interested, you can purchase a 1902 Studebaker Electric for less than $24,000. That seems like a pretty good deal and is considerably less than the cost of a Tesla. The market penetration of electric vehicles has dropped from 38% 120 years ago to less than 1% now. But the New York Times says electric cars are coming and they're going to rule the road. Democrats confiscated another $500 billion from taxpayers earlier this year. They say they're going to use that money to build 500,000 electric vehicle chargers along America's highways. And they say this was a bipartisan effort with the Republicans. And now Democrats are about to confiscate another $500 billion from the taxpaying public. Democrats' deficit reduction bill, which will increase the deficit, has a provision which makes it more difficult to get tax credits for electric cars. Loss of this tax credit will make it even more difficult for electric car manufacturers to stay in business. Rivian Automotive, an electric vehicle startup, reported on Thursday that its second quarter net losses nearly tripled amid skyrocketing inflation and a price cap placed on EV tax credits in the Democrats' spending bill. If Democrats and the press were familiar with history, they would know that the drying up of the Great Salt Lake has nothing to do with the burning of fossil fuels. And they would also know about the massive decline in the use of electric vehicles over the last 120 years. Electric vehicles have exactly the same problems now as they did in the year 1900. The great American physicist Richard Feynman said, "For a successful technology, reality must take precedence over public relations, for nature cannot be fooled." And Mark Twain said, "It's easier to fool people than it is to convince them that they have been fooled." Dogs are very fast learners, and they quickly figure out if somebody's not playing straight with them. Unfortunately, though, about half the human race lacks the intelligence of canines. Toto's been barking about the climate and green energy scams for the past 14 years. You can visit Toto, Kyrie, Caesar, Toki, and Upala on the web at realclimatescience.com.